Hey, my name is Bradley Money, PDGA number 153762, and this is my 2023 end of the year and going into 2024 bag. I currently use the Ezra Adderhold Tour Series Squatch bag, the Link. I love it. I like the open design on top. It's easy to get to everything, and it holds plenty of discs here as well as on the side pockets and even in these big zippers. Some things I carry in my bag that are not discs is I've got my two tags for the local clubs. The Paragould Disc Golf Club that I am a president of, I have the number 1 tag, and the Jonesboro Disc Golf Club, I have the number 10 tag. I have some pens and pencils and some chalk for my hands because my hands get really sweaty even in the winter. Um, Start off with my putting putters. I putt with the Discmania Exo Hard Links. They are really nice, just nice and straight beaded putter. Just something I can point and shoot right at the basket, and they've got plenty of glide to get there, and they're really comfortable in the hand. Going to throwing putters, my two understable throwing putters are the Goliath Discs Genesis. I have this black Oasis plastic, which is the premium plastic. I can throw this out on a little bit of hyzer, and it'll flip up to flat and just ride the whole way. This pink one is in the Old Testament plastic, a little bit more understable. I actually got my first Goliath Disc Ace with this disc on a little turnover forehand, and it is a little bit more understable than the black one. Next up on throwing putters, I have quite a few. I like to throw overstable putters and just putters in general, but I've got three overstable throwing putters with the Goliath Discs Pillar. I've got this blue Oasis plastic one and this black Old Testament team stamped one. This black one is starting to get a little bit beat in, and I really like it for like flat to hyzer shots that don't glide a whole lot. And this blue one is just an absolute overstable workhorse, and I can throw this out on some flex lines, some backhand like hard flat shots. It's not going to go more than 250. Next, I've got this Midnight Z Zone, just a really good straight backhand disc or little fan grip flex shots through the woods. Good forehand upshot disc. For my super straight, just on a rope backhand putter, I've got the Prodigy Discs PA3 in the 300 Glow plastic, I believe. It's nice and beat in, probably 3 or 4 years old. I've had it in my bag on and off in the last 2 years. Used to putt with them. Now I put it with the Links, but I still throw this one. Next up, I've got my turnover forehand upshot disc, which is a Lone Star Bravo Armadillo. Nice and gummy. It's got the thumb track on the top. I use it for turnover forehands in the woods, turnover backhands, long putts that I don't want to go too far past the basket. Just it's just a putter that doesn't go far, and so it's really useful if there's danger behind the basket. Move on to my mids now. I've got two Goliath Disc Gyras. These are nice hyzer flip to just absolutely straight. This black Oasis one, premium plastic, a little bit more understable compared to this clear purple one. The clear purple one can hyzer flip and just go straight, and this black one hyzer flips and turns, just barely drifts off to my right the entire flight. Next up, I have two Goliath Disc Redemptions with this white and this red one, both in the premium Oasis plastic. The white one is a little bit more overstable. I can hyzer flip it a little bit, just like a little bit of hyzer up to flat, and it'll just push straight the whole way. And this red one hyzer flips quite a bit, but always fades at the end. I can put it on quite a bit of hyzer and get to flat, and then it still has that fade at the end. So those complement each other really well. Just a really good straight mid-range. Next up, I've got a Lucid X Verdict from Dynamic Discs. I use this for like a little bit of flex shots, some straight forehands, hyzers, just long pushing hyzers. anything within I can get my mids up to about 330, and this one maybe like 320 because of how overstable it is. This is my super overstable workhorse mid. It is an MD5 Sea Line Metal Flake MD5 from Discmania. This thing fits really well in the hand. Not crazy overstable, but just enough to where it's got all the stability you need. Good and flat, and the most I can get this thing to go is probably 280 feet, maybe 300 if I really pump it. Next up, we will go fairway drivers, which I have a couple in this side, but I've got 3 in the middle here. My 2 most understable that I'm really liking right now are the Goliath Disc Enoch. This orange one is a first run Enoch, and it is a little bit straighter. But this blue one is a newer run, and it is very, very understable for me. I can throw this thing on a ton of hyzer, get to flip up and ride to the right the entire way. And they've been absolute bomber fairways for me. They go so far, so easily, and I've been throwing them a lot right now. Next up, I've got 2 that I'm trying to decide between. I don't know which one will stay in the bag, if either, when the new arc comes out for Goliath, but it's the MVP Wrath and the Discraft Stalker. Both are just something that I want to be able to hyzer flip a little bit and just push straight the whole way with a nice reliable fade at the end. But right now, I don't know which one I'm going to bag, if either of them. Neither of them may make the bag. Next up, I've got the Innova Champion Eagle. This thing I can just throw flat and hard, and it will just push straight, fade off at the end, doesn't get turned. Has a nice little skip at the end if I'm on hard pan ground, but really comfortable feeling, really good flying disc. Next up, I've got the Team Champion Series, Andrew Marweed Firebird in the Glow Plastic. Super overstable, workhorse, forehand. My go-to forehand fairway right now. Good hyzer backhand, flex backhands through the woods. Everything you need from an overstable fairway. And then a step up from that, a extremely overstable fairway driver with the Goliath Discs Chainbreaker. This thing is, I don't want to call it the baby brother to a tilt because it's almost as overstable as a tilt. I've thrown this thing upside down and hit 350 with it. It is insane. And crazy forehand flexes that come all the way out, backhand flexes that come all the way out. Anytime you throw this, it is going to fade out. There is no way to keep it from doing that. It is absolutely flat, and it's got a super high parting line, which makes it extremely overstable. Really comfortable feel in the hand, too. It's not one of those that's overstable but uncomfortable. It's one of those that is overstable and very comfortable in the hand. I love this disc. Next up is distance drivers, which I will start off with my flippy ones. I've got a Discraft Scorch for just long rollers. I can throw this thing flat, and it'll turn all the way over, get on that nice roller angle, and push straight, and at the very end, flip over and curl up. Really far flying. Also could use it for some hyzer flip to turnovers if needed, and use it in tailwind for sure. Only pull this thing out for rollers or tailwind shots. Any other wind, it's almost useless. Next up, my new favorite flippy distance driver that I got in the mail today is the Goliath Disc Slingshot. This thing, sorry about the motorcycle noise. This thing is very understable at the beginning of the flight, and then it fades out at the end. So I throw this thing on quite a bit of hyzer because it'll flip up and get all the way to anhyzer, hold over for about 70% of the flight, and then get to flat and push forward the rest of the flight. The first throw I threw with this hit right at 470, and then every throw after that went up. My max with it today in the field was 538. This thing absolutely goes far with not as much effort as you'd think. It has a ton of glide, and it's really, really comfortable for a 13 speed. It does not feel super wide. It feels more like a 12 speed, but it has a ton of glide, ton of usefulness. This thing should be in everybody's bag. Next up, I've got the Gavin Babcock Shield Series. Swirly S-Line DD3. And Gavin actually gave me this one a few weeks ago. It has become a really, really good hyzer flip to straight shot. It's not as overstable as some DD3s, which I kind of like. It it just goes really far without having to throw a lot of power behind it. It's good for tailwinds, good for downhill shots that you want to just carry straight the whole way. I use it sometimes for extremely long distance rollers if I try to get it down on a good angle. And it's really good for flat to turnover shots as well that come out right at the end. Very useful disc. Next up, I have two Innova Destroyers. I carry a lot of different molds, not a whole lot of duplicates, but every now and then I'll get one mold that I really like that I duplicate in two different flights. This pink bottom stamp one is understable, but it's understable for a destroyer. It's not understable compared to some of those other ones like the slingshot and the DD3. But I can get a nice hyzer flip out of it, and it just turns for about half the flight and then gets back to that nice hyzer angle. Reliable, even in headwinds, I can hyzer flip it and get it to go straight. So it's just a nice, reliable, comfortable feeling disc. Next up, I've got a Palm Macbeth four time destroyer. This thing is a overstable monster. I can do this thing flat and it will just push straight the entire way and then get that nice subtle fade at the end. It's not overstable in the sense that it wants to just push left the whole way. It's overstable where I can throw the swing as hard as I want flat and it will not turn. In a headwind, it may drift to the right, but it's never going to flip and turn. It's just going to barely drift and then finish at the end very strong. Very workable disc. I like it for flex forehands too. It's very comfortable. Next up, my favorite overstable distance driver currently, the Goliath Discs Rapture. This thing has been my forehand go-to ever since Josh sent it to me in the mail. It is extremely flat. This run is extremely flat, and it's got the slightest bit of turn right out of the hand, and then it's got a strong fade at the end. I can actually hyzer flip it on the backhand a little bit, but not a whole lot. But if I put a ton of power behind it, I can hyzer flip and get it to turn quite a bit. But that's like 80 to 90%, which is something I don't throw a lot. I throw a lot of 75% shots because it's the most consistent, the most comfortable, and it's just easier to control. Forehands, it's really nice. I can throw it flat and it'll turn a little bit and then fade out the end. Very predictable flight, very far flight. The max I've hit with this specific one is about 564, 565. Really, really far flying disc. Got three more. Got three more left. My straight disc that doesn't move left or right hardly at all is the Kristen Tatar Orbit Grace. This thing, I can throw in a little bit of hyzer, flip up to flat, go straight, doesn't move left or right, just finishes straight, goes straight, and goes probably between 5 and 530. It's an 11 speed, so it doesn't go quite as far, but I can still push it up there to the 500 foot mark, a little bit past on a good throw. Extremely workable disc, forehand and backhand. My overstable distance driver that's not extremely overstable is the D1, the Gannon Burr D1. Gannon hooked me up with one of these for free, and then he ended up selling me 5 of them for $35 at $7 a disc. It's crazy. These red 500 plastics are my favorite for the D1. It's super domey, super pop top, good for forehand, hyzers, backhand. Throw it as hard as I want flat, and it'll go about halfway straight, and then just start fading off to the left. It will fight any headwind. I have not found a headwind that will turn this thing over yet. I have 5 of these with the red ones. It's got some backups and 3 purple ones. So I haven't tried the purple ones yet. I don't know how they fly. If any of y'all have, let me know in the comments. Tell me how they fly, and I'll have to give them a try here pretty soon. One last disc is one that I've had ever since it came out. It is the Prodigy D2 Pro prototype in this 500 plastic. It's extremely flat on top and super shallow, crazy overstable. I throw it for flex forehands, flex backhands, giant Spikeiser forehand, Spikeiser backhands, anything that I need to fade no matter what and only get up to maybe 370 feet is when I get this disc out. It is crazy overstable and it feels pretty comfortable. It's a little shallow for me, but I like the flight, so that's why I bag it. That's all for in my bag. I've got a mini, I think. Got a mini marker. I don't think there's anything else in here. I've got my rangefinder, my Simmons rangefinder. Not super expensive, just a nice cheap one. Doesn't do feet, which is kind of bad in my opinion, but I can do the math. It's okay. Oh, I've got one more distance driver on the complete opposite end of the spectrum as that D2 Pro. This thing is the flippiest distance driver I think I've ever thrown. It is the Goliath Disc Ambush. It is a little bit puddle topped and super bent over at the wing, so it's super understable. It's a really good utility disc. Like I can throw this thing on a ton of hyzer on a forehand, and it'll turn all the way over and fly like a hyzer backhand if I don't have the room to reach back for a backhand. I can throw this thing on a ton of hyzer backhand, and it'll flip all the way over to a roller and then get super far right before it lays over on its side. It's just a super useful disc, really good for beginners, and even useful for intermediate to pro. Use this disc for almost anything. It's extremely fun to play with. I love it. That's everything in my bag. Thank y'all for watching, and let me know if you want to see anything else video wise, and I will try to work on it. Thank you.